Hello students, welcome to Satva Academy. In this video, I will be discussing about the legality of objectives and consideration. See, when you are making any contract with the other party, you have to consider the legal objectives and consideration. If a consideration or else objective is illegal aspects, then your contract will be a void contract according to the rule of Indian Contract Act. So come, let's discuss about the legality of objectives and consideration. So this is the 13th session of the Indian Contract Act series. Come, let's discuss about the legality of objectives. Come, let's see what are the provisions related to legality of objectives and consideration in Indian Contract Act. See, according to section 23 of the Indian Contract Act, if your consideration and objectives are not valid, see, to know about the valid consideration or else the consideration which is not lawful consideration, for that you have to refer the section 23 of the Indian Contract Act. Here you can get the details regarding the legality of objectives and consideration. See, under the first point, when consideration is forbidden by law. So here forbidden by law means here there is a restriction by the law to make the transactions. When you are making any transaction, you have to go through the different laws, or else you have to check the relevant laws whether the act is valid or not. If there is a prohibition in any law, then you can't make the transaction. If you go to make that transaction and if you make any contract to make that transaction, then that contract will be a void contract. See, for example, there are illegal payments or else giving bribe to someone to getting some benefits. See, these are the illegal transactions. When you make a contract to make a illegal payments or else paying bribe, so that is forbidden by the Indian Penal Code, or else now it is Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. So under that, these bribe transactions are considered as a crime. So now to make a crime or else the activities which are defined as a crime in BNS, for such activities if you make any contract, then that will be an invalid contract because the object itself is a illegal object which are forbidden by the Indian laws. And also you can consider harmful goods or services. See, sometimes you are getting more profit when you are selling the harmful goods to someone else. See, under that you can consider e-cigarettes. E-cigarettes are forbidden by the Indian laws. Now you can't make a transaction of the e-cigarettes. So if someone makes any transaction to get the profit to sell the e-cigarettes, then that contract will be a void contract because it is a illegal activities carried by that person. See, under forbidden objectives you can consider stolen properties of a person or else contrabands like weapons, drugs. These are all the articles which is banned by the Indian government. If you make any transactions to trade those illegal articles or else the articles which is forbidden by the law, then those contracts will be a void contract. For that you are not getting any remedy in a court of law. So that is the problem when you are making any contract. So before making the transaction you have to consider the legality of the objectives and consideration. So if your consideration or else objectives is legal, then only you can go for the enforcement of the contract, or else it is invalid contract. See again the meaning of the contraband. Here contraband, so here contraband means goods that are illegal to possess, produce and distribute by the law. So there are some goods which are prohibited by the government. Even producing the goods or else distributing that goods or else selling those goods, these are all the illegal activities according to the law. So that dealing of the weapons, drugs, these are all comes under these categories. When consideration or objectives are of such nature that if permitted it would defeat the provisions of law. There are some considerations or else objectives. If you gave a permission to do that act, then it would violate the provisions of law. In such a cases, those transactions will be a void contract because that is also considered as a illegal transactions. See, for example, under that there are some categories. Under that first one we can consider agreement in restraint of marriage. That means you are creating the barrier for the marriage of some persons. See here, to stop the marriage of other party, you are defaming the others, or else you are defaming the bride, or else you are defaming the groom. So in that cases, that activities will be considered as a illegal activity. To make such activities, if you make a contract, that contract will be a void contract. Next one, agreement for the future separation of spouses. See, when you are making a marriage, before the marriage if you make any transaction to separate the spouses after some period, or else imposing some conditions for the separation of the spouses, these are all the illegal transactions, so that you can't give the permission to such a contract. Next one is agreement to stifle prosecution. So let's see what is stifle prosecution as per the law. See, stifle prosecution is nothing but where a person not to agree to prosecute someone for committing a crime in exchange of some benefits or else personal interest. See, ಯಾರಾದರೂ ಹೋಗಿ ಕ್ರೈಮ್ ಕಮಿಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರಂತಾದರೆ ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಡ್ಯೂಟಿ ಆಫ್ ದ ಅದರ್ ಪಾರ್ಟಿ? ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಫೈಲ್ ಅ ಕೇಸ್ ಅಗೇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ ದಟ್ ಪರ್ಸನ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದಟ್ ಪರ್ಸನ್ ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ ಪ್ರಾಸಿಕ್ಯೂಟೆಡ್ ಫಾರ್ ಕಮಿಟಿಂಗ್ ದಟ್ ಕ್ರೈಮ್. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಯಲ್ ರೂಲ್. So if you remain silent, then it will not be a crime. See, for example, A commits a murder of B and C is watching that crime now. Now the duty of C is to file a complaint in a police station and he should give the witness in that case. Assume now A comes to C and gives an offer. If he don't file the case or else if he don't give the statement in that case, then he is ready to pay him a 10 lakh rupees benefit. Now think what C has to do here. Now if C agrees not to file the case by accepting that 10 lakh rupees, now this becomes a stifle prosecution because he is supporting the criminals or else offender, those who committed the crime. So this act is considered as a stifle prosecution. See here, the contract made between A and C will be the invalid contract because the objective is illegal objective. Here the objective of the contract is not to prosecute the A by accepting the consideration of 10 lakh rupees. So that when you make a contract for such a objectives, then that contract will be a void contract. Third point is when your objectives or else consideration is fraudulent. See, we already discussed about the fraud in consideration part, where a person makes any fraud to sign the contract, then the contract will be a void contract and the parties will not get any remedy in a court of law. Fourth point is the objective or consideration is unlawful as it involves injury to the person or properties of another. If your contract causes damage to third party or else damage to the property of a third party, in that case also your contract is a void contract because damaging the third person or else third person's property is treated as criminal activities under BNS. So that these are all the illegal activities. When you make any contract to injure the third party, then that contract will be a void contract. Next one, when consideration is immoral. So here, if your consideration is immoral, then that contract is also void contract and you are not getting any remedy in court of law. For example, an agreement where one person pays another to break up a legal marriage. See here, breaking up the legal marriage of other party is an immoral activities. If you pay any money to other party to break their relationships, then that will be an immoral act. So that here it is also considered as void contract if you made any contract for such activities. Next one, when consideration is opposed to public policy. So here there are some activities which are categorized as a act which is against the public policy. Now, for example, committing a riot against the government by using harmful weapons. While making a protest, you are using petrol bombs or else stone pelting. So these are all the illegal activities and it is also against the public policy because it damages the public property. So in the name of protest, if you damage the public property, then that will be the illegal activities or else the act against the public morality or else act against the public policy, so that you shouldn't make any contract for committing those offenses. See, for example, stifling prosecution and trading with the enemies, these are also considered as a act against the public policy. See, for example, now you know what is stifling prosecution. We already discussed about the stifling prosecution. Next one is trading with the enemy. So what is trading with the enemy? Here trading with the enemy means during the war you are making the business transaction with the enemy countries. For example, assume there is a war broke out between India and Pakistan. In that situation, if you make any transaction with the Pakistan or else if you make any contract with the Pakistan, then such a contract will be an invalid contract. There is no enforceability for those contracts. So that when you are making any transaction, you have to be very careful and you have to follow the rules and regulations of the government. If there is any war like situation or else if there is any notification by the central government, and when you treat any country as a alien enemy, then in that cases you shouldn't make any transaction with those parties. If you make any transaction with those parties, then that transactions will be void transactions. Okay, what happens if you make any transaction with the alien enemy? The first point is it is opposed to public policy. Then second one is threat to national security, and third one is pre-war contracts are suspended by the law and wartime contracts are void. See, as I said, when you make any transactions with the alien enemy during the war time, then it is treated as invalid contract and you will not get any remedy in a court of law even if you file a case in court of law. So that is the consequence when you make any contract with the alien enemies. Okay, third one is maintenance and charm party. Okay, let's see what is maintenance is. See here, for example, Okay, see here, maintain is nothing but an agreement in which a person promises to maintain a suit in which he has no interest. Here, who should file a case in court of law? Only victim should file a case in court of law. In some cases, government can take an initiative to file a case in case of criminal cases. Assume if a party comes to file a case even without having any interest in the subject matter, then such an agreement will be treated as maintenance. So in that case, the party don't have any right to involve in the case of other parties. Okay, next one is charm party. So let's see what is charm party. It is more extreme conditions. See, for example, where a person funds a lawsuit on a conditions that they get a share in the money won by the party. See, assume for example there is a accident case. Now A met with the accident and B is a wrongdoer. Now A is expecting 1 crore rupees compensation against B. But the thing is here, A don't have enough money to file a case against B in a court of law, because because when you're filing a case in court of law, you have to give deposits, so you have to pay some court fees, and also you have to appoint the legal advisors and you have to pay him a fees. Now assume A is not in a position to bear all that expenses. Now C comes in and he suggests that he is ready to spend all his cost of suits. Now in return, C is expecting the 30% commission out of the award money. Now this one is a charm party. This one is strictly prohibited by the Indian laws. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಯಾರಿಗಾದರೂ ಅಸಿಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರೆ, ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರೆ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಫೈನ್, ದೇರ್ ಇಸ್ ಎಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಷನ್. ಯಾರಾದರೂ ಪೋರ್ ಪರ್ಸನ್ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ, ಅವನಿಗೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ಲೈಮ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿಕ್ಕೆ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂತೇಳಿ ನೀವು ಒಂದು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ಬೇರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಫೈನ್, ಓಕೆ. ನೀವೇನು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ಬೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ, ಸಮ್ಟೈಮ್ಸ್ ಇಟ್ ಮೇ ಬಿ 1 or 2 lakh rupees. ಆ 1 or 2 lakh rupees ನೀವೇನು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಅದನ್ನು ರಿಟರ್ನ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಬೋದು. ಬಟ್ ಯು ಕಾಂಟ್ ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕಲಿ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ you can get the share in the award money. That will be treated as charm party. So here charm party is a prohibited objective for a valid contract. If you make any contract for a maintenance or else charm party, then it will be a void contract according to the rule of law. So fourth one is trafficking related to public offices and titles. Assume who can be the public servant. To be a public servant or else to acquire any public servant position, you need to possess a proper eligibility. For example, to be a deputy commissioner, you should have a minimum qualification, that is graduation. Sometimes even after having the graduation, there is a condition you have to clear civil services exams. Assume you gave a civil service exam, but for the appointment, now you are paying bribe to your political party leader. Now that one is the trafficking of public offices. Without having any eligibility, by illegal means you are acquiring the public offices. So that is treated as illegal activities or as trafficking of public offices. Okay, see what are the consequences in that case? That one is opposed to public policy, because to be a public servant you should possess minimum required knowledge. Unless you have a knowledge or else skills, you can't be the public servant. So that is against the public policy. Okay, let's see the legal consequences of these activities. See, for example, if you make any such activities by giving the bribe, if you possess any public offices or else if you acquire any government titles, then it will be invalid and also it is considered as against the public policy, and those transactions will be treated as void contracts. So next one, agreement tending to create monopolies. If you are a business owner and you try to create monopoly in the market, then what happens? So here monopoly causes damage to the consumers always. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟಲ್ಲಿ ಮೊನೋಪೊಲಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಉಂಟು ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಾಡಕ್ಟ್ನದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದರೆ, ಆ ಪ್ರಾಡಕ್ಟ್ ಏನಾದರೂ ಬೇಸಿಕ್ ಗೂಡ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಆಯ್ತಾದರೆ ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅದರಿಂದ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ಸ್ ಯಾರಿಗಾಗ್ತದೆ, ಎಂಟೈರ್ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ಕಿಗೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಆಗುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಸಿ ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಎಸ್ಯೂಮ್ ಟೆಲಿಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಷನ್ ಕಂಪನೀಸ್, ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಜಿಯೋ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟಲ್ಲಿ ಟೆಲಿಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಷನ್ ಕಂಪನೀಸ್ ಅಂತೇಳಿ ಬಂದಾಗ ಜಿಯೋ ಉಂಟು, ಏರ್ಟೆಲ್ ಇದೆ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ BSNL ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಎಸ್ಯೂಮ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನಾವು ಜಿಯೋ ಈಸ್ ಟ್ರೈಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಅಕ್ವೈರ್ ದ ಏರ್ಟೆಲ್ ಕಂಪನಿ, ದೆನ್ ವಾಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್ಸ್? ಈಗ ಜಿಯೋ ಏನಾದರೂ ಹೋಗಿ ಏರ್ಟೆಲ್ ಕಂಪನಿಯನ್ನು ಎಕ್ವೈರ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ಅಂತಾದರೆ ಅದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಮೊನೋಪೊಲಿ ಅಂತೇಳಿ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದಲ್ಲಿ, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ವಿ ಡೋಂಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಎನಿ ಅದರ್ ಆಪ್ಷನ್ಸ್. ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಅದರ್ ದೆನ್ ಜಿಯೋ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಲೆಫ್ಟ್ ವಿತ್ BSNL. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಪೀಪಲ್ಸ್ ವಿಲ್ ನಾಟ್ ಪ್ರಿಫರ್ BSNL ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದೇರ್ ಬ್ಯಾಡ್ ಸರ್ವಿಸಸ್. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸರ್ವಿಸ್ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಇಶ್ಯೂಸಿಂದ ಅದನ್ನು ಯಾರು ಪ್ರಿಫರ್ ಮಾಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಎಸ್ಯೂಮ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಇಫ್ ದರ್ ಇಸ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಒನ್ ಕಂಪನಿ ಇನ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ ಟು ಗಿವ್ ದ ಟೆಲಿಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಷನ್ ಸರ್ವಿಸಸ್ ದೆನ್ ವಾಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಕಂಪನಿಯವ್ರು ಮತ್ತೆ ಯಾವುದೇ ಪ್ರೈಸ್ ಚಾರ್ಜ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನು ಪೇ ಮಾಡಲೇಬೇಕಲ್ಲಿ, ವಿ ಡೋಂಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಎನಿ ಆಪ್ಷನ್. ಸೊ ಇಂಥ ಮೊನೋಪೊಲಿಸನ್ನು ಏನಾದರೂ ನೀವು ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಟ್ರೈ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ ಅಂತಾದರೆ ದೆನ್ ದೆರ್ ಇಸ್ ಎ ರೆಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ಷನ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದೀಸ್ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ಡ್ ಎಸ್ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟೀಸ್ ಅಗೇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ ದ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಪಾಲಿಸಿ. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮರ್ಜರ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಅಕ್ವಿಸಿಷನ್ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಸಹ there should be a permission from the CCI. If any two big entities want to merge themselves, then they have to get the permission from the Competition Commission of India. So that is the case in any business. Illi not only the telecommunication services, adu bittu market alli enadru ನೀವು ಒಂದು cartel ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುವಂಥದ್ದು by creating the cartel with your other rivals and you are fixing the unreasonable prices for the goods, these are all considered as a monopoly in a market. So in that case such a contract will be invalid contract or else it is a void contract. See the consequences of the monopolies. First one, it is treated as opposed to public policy. Then it creates harms to the consumers. As I said, whatever the price fixed by the businessman, that must be paid by the consumer in case of the monopoly market, so that government will not allow you to make a monopoly in a market. Next one, stifles innovations. Then void ab initio. Assume if there is only one company in a market, then there is no competition. If there is no competition, company will not invest anything in the R&D. Whatever the product served by the company, that should be accepted by the customer. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ಯಾರು ಕಾಂಪಿಟೇಟರ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ನೀವು ಇನೋವೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡೋದನ್ನು ಸಹ ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರಲ್ಲ, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ನೀವು ಏನೇ ಕೊಟ್ಟರು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕಸ್ಟಮರ್ ಆಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಲೇಬೇಕಲ್ಲಿ, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಕಸ್ಟಮರ್ ಡೋಂಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಎನಿ ಅದರ್ ಆಪ್ಷನ್. So that to avoid all these things, government has considered monopoly activities as void activities. So next one, marriage brokerage agreements. See here, relationship and choices cannot be traded. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮದುವೆ ಮಾಡಿಸುವಂಥದ್ದನ್ನು ನೀವು ಒಂದು ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಅಂತೇಳಿ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬಾರ್ದಲ್ಲಿ, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಅ ಸೇಕ್ರೆಡ್ ರಿಲೇಷನ್ಶಿಪ್ ಬಿಟ್ವೀನ್ ದ ಸ್ಪೌಸಸ್. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇದನ್ನು ನೀವೇನಾದರೂ ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ, ಒಂದಷ್ಟು ಚಾರ್ಜ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಒಂದಷ್ಟು ಮ್ಯಾಚಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ ಅಂತ ಆದರೆ ದೆನ್ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಟ್ರೀಟೆಡ್ ಆಸ್ ವಾಯ್ಡ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಾಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್. ಯೂಶುವಲಿ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ವಾಯ್ಡ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಾಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಇಸ್ ಅಪೋಸ್ ಟು ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಪಾಲಿಸಿ. ಬಟ್ ಯು ಮೇ ಥಿಂಕ್ ದಟ್ there are some marriage bureaus who arrange the marriages, but exactly it is not the brokerage contracts. Here marriage bureaus are giving only the platforms and rest of the things is the decision of the parties. Here parties can use the platform of the marriage bureaus. They only gives you the information, further you have to discuss for your marriage purpose. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮ್ಯಾರೇಜ್ ಬ್ಯೂರೋಸ್ ಬಂದಾಗ ಅವ್ರು ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂತ ನಿಮ್ಗೊಂದು ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಪ್ಲಾಟ್ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಮಾತ್ರ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇರುವಂಥದ್ದು, ಅವರು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮದುವೆಯನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿಸ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಇಲ್ಲಿ. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರು ಕೊಟ್ಟ ಪ್ಲಾಟ್ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಏನಿದೆ, ಇಟ್ ಮೇ ಬಿ ಎ ಡಿಜಿಟಲ್ ಪ್ಲಾಟ್ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆರ್ ಎಲ್ಸ್ ಎನಿ ಅದರ್ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಪ್ಲಾಟ್ಫಾರ್ಮ್. ಸೊ ಅದನ್ನು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ನೀವು ನಿಮ್ಮ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಪಾರ್ಟಿ ಯಾರಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅವರನ್ನು ನೀವು ಹುಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮದುವೆ ನೀವು ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕಲ್ಲಿ. ಸೊ ದಟ್ by giving the platform services they are charging the fees, it is not the brokerage contract. So that there is an exception to the marriage bureaus, they can carry those business. So next one, interest against the obligation. See, assume you already make a contract and again you are making any other contract which violates the interest of the parties, then such a contract will be a void contract and it is illegal consideration. See, for example, an agent making secret agreement to favor the third party over their own employers in exchange for a bribe. Assume person A is appointed by person B as an agent to do his business or else to manage his business. Illi B is a principal. Now A is sharing all the business secret with the C for the additional advantage or else bribe, that is 10,000 per month. Now this one is a illegal consideration where he is accepting the bribe and he is working against the principal. So there is a duty to the agent to work for the benefits of the principal. That is the rule of the agency contract. If you violate that and if you work for the third party, then it is a illegal consideration. Next one, consideration unlawful in part. Even if your consideration is unlawful in part, then still the contract is invalid. You can execute only the lawful part and you can avoid unlawful part. See the example here, A hires B to manage his legal textile factory for 30,000 and an illegal gambling for 20,000 rupees. Now assume gambling is a illegal activities. For that you can't make any valid consideration or else valid contract, that will be void contract. B can manage his business for rupees 30,000, that one is valid. Second part, he can avoid because that is illegal transaction. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅವನು ಗ್ಯಾಮ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ವಾಲ್ವ್ ಆಗುವಂಥದ್ದು ಇಲ್ಲಿಗಲ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಾಕ್ಷನ್, ಅದನ್ನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕಂತಿಲ್ಲ. he can just execute only the business management activities for rupees 30,000 as a salary. So here court will also give the same judgment that first activity is valid, second one is invalid. So this is all about the legality of objectives and consideration. So you have to follow all these conditions when you are making any contact with the other parties. Okay students, if you like the video, please do subscribe our channel and like the video, and also share this video with the professional course aspirants. Thank you.